Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Make Life Less Taxing podcast, the show where we uncover what really creates freedom in life and business, and we'll explore stories of those who've learned how to build wealth with purpose.
Welcome back to the Make Life Less Taxing podcast. Today, I'm joined by Vickie Ford, a financial advisor at Eagle Strategies and Financial Diagnostic Group. Vickie helps clients across the country navigate their wealth journey with confidence, clarity, and compassion. Vickie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Pleasure to have you here. Now, Vickie, can you tell us a little bit more about you, who you are, and the kind of work that you're doing?
You know, really, my job is to get to know my people, have them paint a picture for me about where they are, exactly where they are, what they've done so far, where they'd like to go, when they'd like to get there, and then really products are just a means to an end. Once I know those things, then we pull the products off the shelf that help move somebody forward in the right direction most effectively.
I love that. Paint a picture. I like that. I've never heard anybody to describe that, but that's exactly what you described. So what led you into this world of financial advising in the first place?
Oh, gosh. I'm afraid the story is not a wonderful one. So to be honest, when I went to college, the only thing, I went to college when I was 17, and, you really don't know what your gifts and talents are at that age. But you got to pick a major. And the only thing at that time in my life that I knew I was good at was sports. And it was the only thing I liked. And so I got my degree in recreation, if you can believe that. And then I got out and I absolutely hated it. It was a wonderful career to be a boy mom. It was a wonderful career to do games and stuff at Vacation Bible School. But it was not how I wanted to trade my days for dollars. I felt like the world was passing me by. And so I was going over to work one day. I actually, at that time, I was 22 years old. I was working for the YMCA. And I mean, they're a wonderful organization, but I didn't enjoy my job. And I was the physical and aquatics director. Anyway, there was a sign out front of a building, and it said help wanted. And I was desperate enough that I decided to go inside and see what kind of help they wanted. And it happened to be, I'm not going to name the company, another insurance company, and they offered me a job right on the spot. Well, my older brother, who had been the executive director of the Chamber of Commerce in Edmond, Oklahoma, at the time, had switched careers about 8 months before, and he had joined the New York Life. And so I called my brother and I said, hey, I just got offered a job by this company. They're actually not even around anymore, but something just doesn't feel right. And my brother, who was kind of an alpha male, he says, well, if you're going to interview with the company, you may as well interview with the best. Come over here and talk to us. So I did. I still didn't want to do it. And I knew what I didn't like, but I didn't know yet what I did like. And I tested, I did well. They wanted me to come back in. In the meantime, we had decided to move from Oklahoma City to Tulsa. And I got a job offer from one of the first fitness centers in Tulsa at the time. And when we moved here, and I'd actually stood up a manager at New York Life because I'd gotten this job offer. When we moved here in December, they reneged. So we got here. My husband was a full-time student. I didn't have a job. And my brother calls one day and he says, how's that job hunting going? And he said, I'm going to be candid here. I said, well, not very well. I've turned over everything I can turn over. I can't find anything. And he said, I'm telling you, I want you to go down and interview with the manager at New York Life. And I said to him, Rodney, his name was Rodney, obviously, I do not want to sell life insurance. And he says, well, it beats the hell out of what you're doing. And I went, okay, well, you have a point. And so I went down, and about 6 interviews later, I signed my contract in February of that next year. It took 5 or 6 interviews. So that's how it began.
Yeah.
Um, do
And
you mind
listen,
if
that's a great story. I mean, you know what? I always love it. Fascinating how people get started. Listen, I kind of was recruited into the business myself, not really knowing what it was all about. So no, you know what? It's always fascinating how somebody gets starts, and then when you're looking backwards, it always looks quite interesting. So you're doing it good.
do you mind if I kind of fast forward and
Yeah,
extend that
go.
story a
Yeah,
little bit?
that's fine. Yeah.
So I did fine. I was in the business for 14 and a half years. And we had kids. And I always thought I would be a person who did both. But what I found was that I wasn't doing my clients or my kids a favor.
Mm.
Because I'd be at the park on my phone with the client, and the kids would go, "Mommy, watch me." And I'd be going, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, I'll be there in a minute." And I went, something's got to go. And I'll never get my kids back.
Mm.
But if I choose to, I can come back to this. So after 14 and a half years, I quit the business. And honestly, I didn't know if I was coming back to this. I knew I'd come back to work. I didn't know if it would be this. So I spent the next 10 years um, analyzing, thinking, is there another career out there I think I'd like better? Is there anything I'd have more conviction with? Is there anything I'd have more purpose with? And as it happened, my husband also gets hired to do events with New York Life. So I still got to come to meetings during that 10
Oh.
years, stayed connected to the company. And during that time, the boundaries between banking, stock brokerage, and insurance, they all blurred. They used to be very defined. One couldn't do the other. But those boundaries got blurred. And I would sit out in the audience and go, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe we can do that now. We can do that now? That's so cool." And so sometimes I felt like a racehorse that couldn't get out of the gates. And about 7 years into my 10 years off, one of my clients' son died in a drug-related shooting.
Mm.
And I went to the funeral, and they own a husband and wife business. And I felt nudged to stop and check on him. I was going down the street. I still wasn't back in the business. But I just felt nudged to stop and check on him. So he was over driving a forklift, and I kind of walked up and put my hand on his arm, and I said, "You know what? I don't know what to say, but it's Christmas, and I know you're hurting, and I just want you to know I'm thinking about you." And he started crying, and he said, "You can tell it still affects me."
Yeah.
He says, "Do you remember when you made me buy that life insurance policy on my son?" And I said,
Mm.
"Yeah, I do." And he said, "It was the nicest thing anybody's ever done for me. Because of that, my granddaughter will go to college, and she
Mm.
wouldn't have otherwise." He was crying, made me cry. And I got back in my car and I went, "Oh my gosh, it's been in front of me the whole time and I didn't see it. This is my calling. This
Yeah.
is what I want to do for the rest of my life." And so when I came back 3 years later, it was with a whole heart. It was undivided focus. And but it took me a long time to really find the conviction that I have and work with today.
Yeah, listen, that's a great story. I often tell people, listen, the two most important dates in anybody's life is the day they're born, obviously, and then the day where they discover why. And I think this
Yes.
is where it comes down to. So often people kind of struggle; they don't know what they're doing, and especially in the financial business. We're always talking about numbers, but I always say, listen, this business is not about numbers. It's about the relationships. It's about what you're able to do, and your story kind of illustrates that beautifully because so often you know what you probably know, it's The Wonderful Life, right? In that movie, like we don't know what impact we have on somebody until somebody, just like that happened there, you reached out, tapped on somebody, and then somebody let you know exactly what difference you've made. And I think
Yes.
that's so important. And I know often advisors that have had, unfortunately maybe a death claim or something that they have done with a client, suddenly there was this, they look at life a lot differently because it now makes sense. So it's kind of one of those unfortunate things. But again, that's what kind of insurance is all about. It's in case something happens. And,
Yes.
unfortunately, nobody wants to be a parent where unfortunately something happens to their child. But at least there was that legacy that was basically brought out that now the granddaughter is going to be able to go to school and you were part of that. So that's a beautiful story.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. It made all the difference in the world in how I saw it. The really fun part is when I did come back, the industry had changed so much. Uh, we get to go from beginning to end. We get invited into sacred spaces because people tell us things that they don't always tell other people, because it starts with money, and then a lot of times it lapses into other things that they're dealing with. And so we get invited into sacred spaces. We get to celebrate with them when great things happen. They sell their company for $1 gazillion, or, what have you. And we cry with them when they're hurting. And we get to do life with our people. And I can't think of another career that offers that kind of connection and purpose. And it creates a great responsibility to make sure that what you do, there's this word that we throw around all the time these days, and it's fiduciary. And I'm thinking how sad it is that we've come to the place that we think we have to regulate the fiduciary responsibility. And we define it, and people use it on commercials. And I'm thinking, if you just love your people, and you do what's right for them, regardless of anything else, you do what's right for them, it solves the fiduciary thing. And I mean, it takes care of it. You don't have to regulate it, but like we talked about a little earlier, there are always bad players. Or maybe I think it was the last person I was talking to. He was talking about every field has bad players. And
unfortunately, yeah.
That's right. And so the rest of us get regulated because we got some bad guys over here who didn't do it well.
Unfortunately, that's kind of how nature works, right? Few bad apples spoil the whole bag, right? So that's kind of unfortunate of that. So, listen, Vickie, if you had to sum up your mission in one sentence, what would that actually be?
It would be that I help my clients build. Let me think about this a second. My job is to make sure that your family's provided for in the event that you don't. Can I have like 3 sentences instead of one?
Oh, of course.
I can't
you describe it as well
sentence.
as you can.
I can't do it in one sentence. I don't know, maybe I'm too verbose or something, but my job is to make sure that if you don't live long enough, your family's going to be taken care of. If you do live long enough, you accumulate enough money so that one day when you want to rest a little more or work a little less, you've got the option to do that. Maybe not work at all. A retirement looks like a whole different beast to a whole lot of people. And then make sure that your money lives as long as you do. And if you want to leave a legacy, we plan for that too.
Yeah, oh, that's great. Yeah, listen, sometimes we can't go and describe something in one sentence, or you're completely fine when it comes down to it. So
I always say the elevator speech.
No, that was great. So who are the type of clients that you're most serving these days?
Oh golly, I don't know that it's any one type. I know a lot of people have niches. I really, really, really love to work with business owners and people who who make their own decisions. They don't, the corporate thing is fine, but that's really not my deal. I don't play golf with the guys and, but I have a lot of small business owners and their families come with it, ranchers in rural Oklahoma, small business owners here in Tulsa. And then, a lot of just individuals that, they need help. Last week, this would be an example of just a real middle of the road kind of a thing. Last week for my birthday, we went to an elephant sanctuary that's down here in southern Oklahoma. There's like only 6 in the country, but one happens to be here, oddly enough. And I'd been wanting to go to it for a long time. You go down and you can spend the night in these cabins, and elephants bring you your breakfast, and it's a pretty cool thing. Yeah. And so at breakfast we met a couple that was a couple of cabins over, and they were from Minnesota, and they were on their way to Dallas and decided to make this one their stopover, this elephant sanctuary. And we began to talk. What do you do? And this is what I do. And we separated and went back to our cabins and kind of waiting for the next thing we were going to do. I think they were going to check out. And she wanders down about 15 or 20 minutes later, and she says, "Can you work with people in Minnesota?" And I said, if I'm licensed there, and I think I am, and I went in and checked, I am licensed in Minnesota, as a matter of fact. She said, we've never talked to anybody to get a plan together, and we're coming up on retirement, and we need some help. Is there any way that, how can you help people that are out of state? And I said, well, we start with a Zoom call, and we do it that way. And you take it one step at a time, and then determine if I can help you, if you need help, what we need to do to get you where you want to go. So that appointment followed up a week later, and they're on this schedule for the week after Thanksgiving. And so I don't know that I ever set out. I know they say figure out your niche or whatever, but I just
that is your niche. Again, those are all of those rules, and when it comes down to it, I think what it comes down to, your niche really is just building relationships with people. And that's often what I tell advisors, right? I mean, it makes it a little bit easier when you have a specific, like you already mentioned, you mostly with business owners and such. But I think the most important part is what you just kind of demonstrated. You had a conversation with somebody. You weren't trying to sell them. You just shared what you do, and they were naturally attracted to you. And I think that's kind of the most, I would say that's even better marketing plan than trying to figure out with a 60-second elevator pitch when you try to sell somebody. It's making people feel comfortable, because this business really is about relationships, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's trite, and everybody's heard it, but that whole, they don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And
100%.
so it's important, if I were giving advice to myself from a long time ago, I would say, find the people that you naturally like, because you're going to live life with them. And if you've got somebody over here, because when you're young and early in the business, you just take anybody. I was like, oh gosh, I just got to keep going. And then you look back and go, oh, these people are so difficult. I'm having a hard time with this. And it's harder to connect, or maybe the husband and wife argue a lot, you just never know. But that was one of the decisions I made when I came back, is I'm working with the people that I naturally feel like I can connect with.
You might as well go and build a business that you actually enjoy instead of in the hustle, right? So I think that's a great advice. Yeah. I think there is a saying, hopefully I'll get it right. Slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And I think this is kind of what you're mentioning when it comes down to, you just kind of naturally spoke to this couple, and they're coming to you. And again, that relationship is already at a completely different level. The trust is already there, because they're coming to you because they find you attractive to go and have that conversation with and trust you with that.
Which is an incredible honor.
Yeah.
It's when that happens, I hold that in a sacred place, because I think one of the most vile things people can do is earn somebody's trust and then violate the trust by not doing what is right. And it really, really, really bothers me. So it's
you're not the only one. There was a lot of people, and again, we're back to there's bad actors, and we can't do anything about that. But it's important to go and build that trust. Now, when someone comes to you first, what's usually kind of happening in their life or in their business? Like what are some of the challenges that they're dealing with that you kind of see most often? I know that there's many different things, but
I think at this stage, so your natural market is within about 10 years of your age, So for me, most of my people are going to be a little more mature all the way through retirement, and so, retirement's on the horizon. They got a 401k that they're gonna, they're trying to figure out, do I have enough? Can I really retire? What are my options for that? What can we do to build in safety and still build in growth? Where do we go from here? Our kids have left home. They've graduated college, and now, we've got this many years. What do we want to do from here? So it really begins with a lot of questions, a lot of conversation, and a lot of information exchanges hands. I'm in my office now and you can't see it, but I have a frosted glass wall over here that there are a lot of times in a meeting that in order to, I kind of think visually, that I can get up and draw a picture, explain something on the wall in a way that it would take me, 3 paragraphs to say, but I can paint a picture on the wall and they go, oh yeah, that makes sense. And so I would say it's going to be people who are starting to think about retirement. They're thinking about getting their ducks in a row, or people who are having to take care of their parents and they go, oh my gosh, I don't think we have any long-term care insurance and this is costing a fortune. We should check on that. And then it morphs into, well, we've got this $1 million IRA over here too. Well, who's handling it? Well, the guy just retired and I don't like the new guy. And you go, okay, well then, we can do that. We can do a transfer of assets. Let's look at what you're doing. Let's see how we can improve what you've got.
Yeah. So. No, that's great. So what do you think? And as far as just kind of looking at, there's a lot of things that are changing all the time with, AI right now is kind of the hot topic, but even, with everything that's going on, what do you think is kind of the biggest financial blind spot that is often overlooked, or people overlook the opportunities that, when you start having those conversations that you kind of see that people are not seeing?
I'd say that I'd say the hardest topic frequently to address with people is life insurance, because first of all, they don't think they want it. They've been told that term insurance is the only way to go, but that leaves them out in old age with nothing, because term insurance was in most cases not meant to last that long. And they don't necessarily understand, why do I need it when I'm older? Well, for one thing, when one of you dies, your Social Security check's going away at the most basic level. So if you each made, you get to keep the best check, or basically they true the low one up to the high one. But if one of you makes $2,000 a month and one of you makes $3,000 a month, and then one of you dies and you get to keep $3,000 a month, did your bills just go down by $2,000 a month? Well, for most people, they don't. Unless you've got an extra bucket of money that you're not using, life insurance is one of the only ways to replace that income. So the need for insurance and the type it is, the most important thing is that you buy enough. The next most important thing is the type you buy. Some of it we get to throw away. Some of it we want to keep. And that's going to determine which product we use. But people think, oh, I'm not going to need it when I'm older. But I've only had a few people that get out there and go, I really don't need this anymore. I've had people get out there and go, why didn't I buy more of this when I was younger? I go, well, it was a budget-driven decision.
It's kind of like,
go ahead.
It's kind of like when you deliver a life insurance death benefit, nobody ever says, "Oh, I wish there was less." They're like, "Oh, I wish there was a little bit more. It would have made it a little bit easier," right? So I think in the same way,
cash is king. Right. When you die, cash is king. It lets you keep an asset instead of selling it at a loss, instead of having to have a fire sale. But those are all things that people don't think about until they've walked through death with somebody. It's the most difficult product to bring up. I had some really successful people in my office. He worked for corporations most of his life, made a good living, had been a good saver, and he had 3 prior 401ks that he hadn't bothered to roll over. And he had been in contact for a year with this very pushy investment advisor. They're with a big firm and they're known to be very pushy. And that's how he felt. And we sing in church choir together. And my husband's the director. And when one night he came up and he said, I think I'm supposed to talk to you and I think we need your help. And so I said, well, come in and let's talk about it. So they came in, and and we started in the middle instead of starting at the beginning where you kind of start with foundation stuff, which is usually risk management and emergency savings. We kind of started up in the portfolio management, and it's always harder to double back and go, now we've talked about the fun stuff. This is the sexy stuff. It's fun. Yeah. I'm going to back up here and we need to talk about your foundation. It's tell me about your life insurance. Well, what do you mean? Well, he said, all I've ever had is my group term. I said, so, okay, is 1 or 2 times your salary? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, so you're now not working for them anymore. Tell me about your life insurance. Well, I don't have any. And I said, so next topic. That's our next topic. We got to make sure you got 5 kids. Yeah, they got 5 kids. No, they have 6 kids. 6 kids, and your wife is a teacher. You make $200,000 a year. He started his own business, consulting business. You make $200,000 a year, and your wife is making 45 or 50. Is she going to be able to maintain her standard of living? Right? But he said, to be honest, I'd never thought about it. Sometimes that group benefit stuff lulls people into a sense of complacency, and they don't think they need to check on certain things. And, I kind of had to hold their feet to the fire, but in the end, they did it. And now they realize the importance of it. So, but it's, you have to have a certain level of confidence to go, no, I know this isn't fun, but we're going to talk about it, because a plan, hope is not a plan. Hoping that you don't die is not a plan. We got to batten down the hatches here. Yeah.
And again, and making them aware of what the result is. Just as you were saying that, it reminds me often when I worked with business owners. We'd kind of go and have this business meeting where we're asking the employees, like, hey, what's the strategy here? And it was always funny because the business owner would start talking. I'm like, no, hang on, you're dead. You don't exist. Go and sit in the corner over there, right? Because they don't think about that, because they're thinking when they're there, they've got all of the answers. But it's like, but you're not here anymore. What's going to happen, right? Yes. And I think the same thing when you're talking with families, like, and the example that you just shared, you're no longer working there. Like those benefits, you got a way you can potentially convert it, but often people don't think about it. They don't do anything. You don't have it. What's going to happen? You need to have something a little bit more permanent and something you can own, because at essence, when they have group benefits, they're kind of like renting it, and it could change at any time. There is no ownership of the contract, right?
Oh, yeah. Most of them aren't portable. The only one that I've seen that was portable was a group term out of IBM. I don't know if it's still that way. It was years ago. But when you went to look at the premium, it converted to a universal life, and the premium was astronomical, because here's what they know. Yeah. If you're converting it, you're uninsurable, and the premium reflects it. So you've got to have that umbrella of protection that in the event that the car accident comes up short and you live, but you're disabled and you just lost your job, but you're disabled, guess what? You're uninsurable for life too. Yeah. So you've got to have that umbrella of protection. Will keep your options open in the future, and future employment will not become a benefits driven choice.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. So when you think about as far as kind of working with individuals, what are kind of and you already shared quite a few of your values, but what are kind of the biggest values that you have when you do work with people?
Well, the biggest value, and sometimes as you collect facts, the solution just pops right out. You can see it. You go, okay, here's the next step. And then after that, here's the next step. Sometimes I have to sleep on it. Sometimes I've got to sleep on it for a week. And then all of a sudden I go, oh, okay, why didn't I see that 3 days ago? You wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh, okay, that's what we need to do. The biggest value is always, always, always keeping their best interest at heart. I never, ever look at commission. I mean, I will not let my mind go there. You never look at commission until a final choice is made. I'm going to lay them out there and explain the differences. Here are the benefits of this, the downside, the upside. Here's this, here's the downside or upside. I want them to do what they think is right for them. I'm going to give them the information. Hopefully they'll make an informed decision. If they're going a direction that I really don't think they should go, I go, let's talk about this a little more, because if I were in your shoes, I might be thinking about going this direction over here, and here's why. But it's just always lead with their best interest, and never think about how much you're going to make. Because in the end of the day, you'll make what you need to make. You'll pay your bills, and the money will be there. And on some cases, you're going to make a gajillion dollars. And on other cases, you might work for free. And but you know what? There's a biblical principle, and it's called not being a respecter of persons. In other words, you don't, Jesus gives a parable about the wealthy man being escorted to the front of the building, and the poor man sitting in the back, and he talks a little bit about how that's not his way. And so it's important to me, it's a personal decision, that I treat both kinds with the same level of respect. Now, somebody, because of their circumstances, may require more attention because they have more stuff going on, but it doesn't. It's about attitude. It's about how I approach that person. You can approach somebody if they're the garbage man is just as important as your attorney.
Right. Yeah.
So those would be kind of the two biggies for me.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of brings to, you've seen a lot over the years. I mean, a lot of different shifts, that you notice. I mean, maybe you've already described it, or maybe you can expand on this. Like, what clients are truly looking for, from their advisor? Like, have you seen, and I'm sure there is a lot of shifts that have happened that you have seen over the years.
Yeah, and I think the answer to that is everywhere along the continuum, because there are some people who you work with who are already very informed. They, or sometimes they think they're informed, but they're not. They're listening to the wrong resources on certain things. Maybe they're listening to talk radio, and they forget that no two people are identical. No two plans are identical. And some of these people are giving one advice to everybody all the time. And that never works, because no two people are identical. No two needs are the same. And so I got a little off track. Remind me your question one more time. I'm just
what are really the values? A lot of things happen in the industry, and you kind of mentioned too, you were in it, then you went out. What are some of the shifts that you have kind of seen that people are looking for as we're kind of where we are right now compared to even, years before? What are the values, and what are kind of people looking from their advisor?
Oh, okay. So I think the biggest shift is being able to do holistic planning. Because in the beginning, because everything was segregated, stockbrokers here, insurance agents here, bankers over here, and everything was very divided. There was a lot of competition. It was very hard. You, at the client, really had to be the playmaker, because these two people didn't play well in the sandbox together. And so now, as a holistic planner, being able to do the insurance, and really, I think the insurance products are probably some of the most complicated to understand. Some of them are easy, some of them are a little more complex. It's not like buying a mutual fund and you buy so many shares at so many dollars. Does it go up or down? Does it get a dividend? Does it have capital gains? But now, used to, brokers would very often go, oh, you don't need that insurance product. And insurance agents would go. Now, as a holistic planner, I can say, let's make sure all of this is working together the right way. Because you need both to maximize your portfolio. You need some safety. You need some aggressive growth. We need to, and again, what's going to drive that is some people are legacy minded, and they they want to be sure something's left at the end. Other people are like, you know what? I want my check to the mortuary to bounce. I'm not leaving my kids anything. And then you've got other people who are already worth the $30 million that can be passed in legacy. And if their life expectancy is another 30 years, they're looking at a massive estate tax potentially. And that's a whole different conversation. You know, they want to keep the ranch in the family. It's been in for 3 generations and it's passed and passed, and they want to pass it to their kids. They don't want to be the ones who lost it. And so that's a whole different conversation. So it really depends on, are they legacy minded? Do they want to leave anything behind? Do they live alone? Do they just, are they just trying to make their money last and they don't care what happens? Do they have a favorite charity? All of that weighs in. And that's why every plan is unique, and you can't give one set of advice to everybody all the time. It just doesn't work.
You bring a great point, and you brought up the word legacy. So when you think about legacy, both, you know, personally or professionally, what do you want your work to really stand for?
You know, it's funny. When I started here, I was 24 years old, and I had no gray hair, and I had no wrinkles in either. And there were a crew of older men, because there weren't very many women at the time. There still aren't that many, but there were a crew of older men, and they were all in their they seemed ancient to me then. I'm going, gosh, I should have been nicer. And I look back and I think, what do I say about them? They're all deceased now, but I knew them. And I think, okay, you know, each one of them had their own characteristics. So to answer your question, I've actually thought about that. And I thought, you know, I want people on a personal basis, I want people to go, gosh, I loved working with her. She did a great job for me. And I'm so glad we built our house so that we didn't build a fixer-upper that we had to undo and redo because we didn't get good advice to begin with. I want them to build their financial house so that whatever we do, whether I'm here or I'm not here, they can add to it without having to undo anything they've done before. You know, I of course want to be thought of as honest and caring, and you know, somebody that people were glad they met and made a difference in their lives. In terms of other people, you know, that some people don't care anything about what I just said. They're really all about money. I don't typically tend to attract those people.
They're probably not your clients. So
well, they don't. You kind of tend to. I think you typically tend to attract people who are kind of like you. There's a comfort level there. Same with the age thing, and there are stragglers who are outside the age thing, but generally speaking, it could be kids of clients that choose to work with you or whatever, but generally speaking, the lion's share is going to be in here. You know, it's interesting. There's everybody from, say, a single female who has lost her son recently, who had lost her husband recently, and she's really down to no family members. And I'm handling her money. Her son really kind of set her up, and I'm handling her money. And the trust factor, when she comes in, I can tell that I'm able to put her at ease. You know what? We've got this. Your money is gonna live as long as you do. Here are the stages that we've planned for, and take a deep breath. You're going to be good. You're going to be well. There are other people who there's no way they're going to leave a legacy. They're just really scared that they're going to be able to live to the end and have an income stream because they didn't plan well and they didn't save well, and maybe now they've got health issues and can't work. So legacy's off the table. They're just trying to maybe not be a burden to their kids. Yeah, you know, it's different. I'm not sure if I answered your question or not.
Yeah, no. You bring out a great point when it comes down to it again. Now, when What does financial wellness really mean to you, and how do you define that? Because again, and there's many different definitions, but specifically for you, when we're looking at that, what does that, how would you define that?
Financial wellness
Yeah.
would be I have 3 to 6 months of, maybe even longer, a year's worth of salary in my liquid. It's liquid, and day-to-day safety is different than 3-day safety. You can make a lot more money on something that can be liquidated in 2 days or 3 days than something that I want to go down to the bank right now and get my money. And so there's a difference there. But financial wellness, as long as they've got 3 to 6 months, maybe longer, of savings, they're on track. They're on track in terms of accumulation for tomorrow or down the road. I know that if something happens to their ability to get up and trade their days for dollars, whether it's because they're dead or disabled, that we've got mechanisms in place that their income will continue.
Yeah.
Coupled in that would be, education planning for their kids. How much do they want to have? How much do they want to provide? And again, there are vehicles for that. But for a lot of people, for most people, it's like trying to keep 5 balls in the air at once, and they've only got so much money to work with. And so you've got to prioritize and sometimes take things a step at a time. Okay, we're going to solve this today, but 6 months from now, when you've got that paid off, we're going to circle back, and now we're going to address this. But if I said somebody was financially well, they'd have all those ducks in a row. They'd have a 529. They'd have a well-funded 401k or Roth. I love Roths. Roth 401k, or they'd have enough life insurance, and part of it would be permanent, so it would live as long as they do. They'd have disability. They'd have long-term care planning if they're old. Well, I mean, you can really get that as young as 35, but I guess it depends on them, maybe younger. There's on my son's life insurance policy, I coupled on top of it when he got a little older, just out of college, I bought another contract on him, and I put chronic care on that one. Why? Because if he has a car accident and can't work, I want some money to be able to help them. Because it's disability related. Long-term care has to do with activities of daily living. So, financial wellness, battening down the hatches. The fewer things that can harm you financially, the more financially well off you are. Very few people are able to batten down all the hatches.
Yeah, I think it comes down to just start the journey. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing. A lot of people, because it is a journey. It's not like, hey, you kind of go and set it and forget it, right? It doesn't work like that. Also, you can't go and fix everything all at once. There is a bit of a journey to it. So it's, a matter of just being aware of it and start working towards, the goals that you have. And I think you mentioned that at the beginning, like, hey, where are you at? Where do you want to go? Well, let's figure out how do we get there, right? It's kind of a journey. So
it's always easier to steer a moving object than it is to steer one that's sitting still.
Exactly. And the goal is don't stop, because sometimes when you stop, you're actually moving backwards. And I think most people don't realize that that's what happens. Now, as we're closing and coming to the end here, I've got these, I call them the 4 rapid fire questions. They're very simple and easy to answer. The first one is favorite book that really shaped your thinking that you would recommend.
Oh, it wouldn't be financial. It would probably be a book by Scott Peck called The Road Less Traveled. It is a self-help book, but it was written back in, I don't know, the late 80s or early 90s. But I think it all still holds true. There are some wonderful, I'm reading a book right now that I absolutely love. Again, it's more of a leadership book, and it's called The Colonel and the Cowboy. And it's about a world record rodeo athlete, and the discipline of building integrity, building character, the things you have to do to become an elite elite in any field, an elite athlete, an elite business person, what are the characteristics that that person has? I would recommend it. I'm not finished with it yet, but
sounds fascinating.
yeah, it's a good
Yeah.
book. The Colonel and the Cowboy. That's okay. That's the first question, I
Yeah,
guess.
that's perfect. What's one morning routine or a daily habit that you can't live without?
Oh golly. It would be a quiet time.
Hmm.
At a time, for me, you know, for some people that's, you know, that's maybe just centering themselves. For me, that's spending time with God.
Yeah, no, that's great. Bucket list that you haven't checked off yet.
Ah, there are a lot of those. I really want to go to an elephant sanctuary in Africa and spend a couple of weeks getting to play with the baby elephants. Yeah. And I know
you got hooked on those elephants, eh?
Oh, I love them. Well, I'm an animal lover anyway. I love animals. I spend, that'd be a second thing I do. I watch animal videos on YouTube sometimes. They're just amazing. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great one. Yeah. Yeah, no, that sounds exciting. What's a surprising hobby or interest that really recharges you?
Well, and so my husband and I have e-bikes, and I've got this really fast e-bike. You know, you might remember that I kind of grew up doing sports, and my real sports, I was a competitive water skier in college, and then I show skied in the summer. And my parents had a place in Vail when I was growing up. So we did all of our trips to the mountains. And back then you could take your kids out of school for a week or two at a time and self-study and come back and still be on track. And so we did a lot of that. So really my two best sports are snow and water skiing, but my shoulders can't handle water skiing anymore. It's too much pressure on my shoulders. But snow skiing, you've got gravity on your side. As long as you've got good technique and gravity, you're going to get
just heading down the hill.
But as far as a date, we live in Oklahoma. We don't have any mountains. We got to go to Colorado for that. So if I'm looking at the day and I want it to be, it's a beautiful, the weather's beautiful. It would be a really fun e-bike ride. My husband and me, we have Bluetooth helmets, so that we can talk to each other up to about a quarter mile apart. You don't have to be neck and neck. And some of our best conversations are on the bikes with our Bluetooth helmets.
Yeah, no, you remind me of something often with my queen. The best conversations we have when I'm traveling somewhere and I'm driving somewhere. It's like when we're sitting together, not so much, but when we're apart. So that's actually great example of that. So, all right, I've got one last question. I call it the hot one. Fast forward to the end of your life and imagine that everyone forgot everything that you ever taught them or showed them. Okay. But they do remember kind of this one last message from you. What would you want that message to be to them?
Well, you're probably looking for something financial, but it wouldn't be that.
No, this is about you. So whatever advice. It's like we already talked about it. Financial business is not about finance.
If I'm dying, and I've actually thought about this, which the only objection you can't overcome in someone else is the one you haven't overcome in yourself. So if I'm going to be comfortable talking about life insurance and the end of life, I got to be really comfortable with it too. And so I've thought a lot about that. If I were on my deathbed and I had a sentence or two, and there were people standing around me, I would say, make sure you know Jesus Christ as your Lord, personal Savior. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the rest of life will happen.
It will take care of itself. That's a great message. Yeah.
So might be a little religious for some, but it is the core of my life. So
listen, that's something we don't ever have to apologize for from that perspective. So we're kind of in the same camp from what I'm hearing from you. So don't worry about that. That I always tell them that's their problem. Hey, all we can do is we can just share our experience. You know what? It's up to God, whatever He's going to do with that individual. So we're in good company here. Wow, what a powerful and perspective shifting conversation, Vickie. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. Where can people find out more about you and the work that you do?
So our website is just financialdiagnosticsgroup.com. It's kind of a long thing. You can also look it up with Tulsa, New York Life, and I'm in the Tulsa, New York Life.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll have show notes and all that stuff. So we'll put the website and everything there. Perfect. So if you're listening, be sure to check out the resources that Vickie created to help you really design meaningful, stress-free retirement. Vickie, thank you again for your time and for your message. And remember,
thank you, Daniel. Thank you
making
so
life less taxing isn't just about money. It's about freedom, clarity, and purpose. Keep building wealth, keep protecting your legacy, and keep living the untaxable lifestyle. We'll see you next time on the Make Life Less Taxing podcast. Again, thank you, Vickie. It's been a great conversation.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Make Life Less Taxing podcast. Be sure to check out our other top advisor interviews at makelifalesstaxingpodcast.com.